Today is Monday, October 5th. Let's go ahead and start with the review of all of our books of the Bible. So let's start with the Genesis. Let's try to say them together. So, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, and Hosea. So good job if you were able to say all of those. If not, just keep on practicing. And so let's go to our new books of the Bible that we will learn on this week. So we have Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum. Again, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum. After our Bible lesson today, you can practice writing your books of the Bible 2 times. Last week in Bible, we learned about how Abraham had to send his other son, Ishmael, who was not the promised son, and his mother, Hagar, away. He sent them back to Egypt. But God had given Abraham a promise that he would make Ishmael a great nation, and so he wouldn't have to worry about that. And so Hagar and his mom started their journey. They had gotten lost, but they learned how to pray from being in Abraham's house. And so they prayed to the Lord to take care of them, to provide for them. They asked God if he saw them, and God did. And so God provided water for them, and God led them to the land of Egypt, where over time Ishmael did become a great nation. So God kept his promise. So we learned how God did bless Abraham and Sarah with their son Isaac. And so one day God spoke to Abraham and told Abraham that he wanted him to offer his son Isaac as a sacrifice. And so Abram, believing God, had faith in God, because he said, God, you promised this son, but I know that if I will sacrifice this son, I know you would do something miraculous to bring him back, because you promised to give me this son. So Abraham went and offered his son Isaac as a sacrifice. Well, he went to offer his son Isaac as a sacrifice, but the Lord stopped him. God was testing Abraham to see how much Abraham loved the Lord, and Abraham proved that he loved God more. So on today, we will discuss Isaac. So Isaac is now an adult man. He is 40 years old at this time. He still lives with his father, Abraham. Unfortunately, Sarah has died at this time. And so Abraham, he's a lot older. Remember, he was 100 when Isaac was born, so that means he's 140 now. And so Abraham knew that as he was getting older, eventually he would die one day. And so he didn't want to leave Isaac alone. And so Abraham decided that it was now time for Isaac to get a wife. It was now time for him to marry someone, so that when Abraham would pass away, Isaac wouldn't be alone, and Isaac would be able to have the blessing because he now had a wife. So Abraham chose one of his most trusted servants to do the job for him. Abraham chose his servant Eliezer to be the one to go and find a wife for Isaac. So Abraham said, Eliezer, promise me that you will not let my son Isaac marry one of these Canaanite women. I want you to go to my hometown, remember Abraham was from Ur, to find my relatives, his family, and find a wife for him there. So Abraham was sure that he did not want Isaac to marry one of the Canaanite women. You may say, who are the Canaanite women? Well, if you remember, the promised land is also called the land of Canaan. And so the women from that land are called the Canaanite women. And so those women did not serve God. They did not love the Lord. And so Abraham did not want Isaac to marry a woman who didn't love God. Instead, Abraham told Eliezer to go to his hometown, go back to where Abraham was from, and find Isaac a wife amongst Abraham's family, because he knew that this woman would love God. And so not only that, but the woman would have to come back. She would have to leave her home and come to the promised land to marry Isaac. And so Abraham made sure to tell Eliezer this whenever he went out to find Isaac a wife. So Eliezer knew this was a big job that Abraham was giving him to do. He was like, I want to make sure that I pick the right woman for Isaac. I don't want to pick someone that I think would be good enough, or if I think she's beautiful enough. I want to make sure that I pick the right person for Isaac. So Eliezer said he would go. He packed a bunch of camels, he packed some servants, and he brought all kinds of gifts that he would give to her, like rings and bracelets and necklaces, all of that. So he journeyed and journeyed and journeyed, and finally he made it back to where Abraham was from. And so Eliezer thought, he said, okay, I'm here. And so when he arrived at the well. Now, what's special about the well in Bible days was women would often go to the well to get water from the well. And so Eliezer knew that by him arriving at the well, he knew he would meet a lot of different women. So he thought that would have been a perfect place to find a wife for Isaac. So Eliezer knew that he would meet a lot of women, and so he wanted to make sure that he chose the right woman, though. So Eliezer prayed, and he asked God for what's called a sign. And so he said, Lord, I need you to show me which woman would be the right woman for Isaac. So a sign is something that we can actually ask God for today. Say if we're praying and we're asking God for the direction. So say if we say, Lord, should I go left or should I go right? We say, God, if I should go left, send me a red bird. Show me a red bird, Lord. Or if I should go right, show me a blue jay, Lord. And so that's a sign. And so God will send whichever bird to answer your prayer. And so Eliezer was going to ask the Lord for a sign to show him which woman would be the right woman for Isaac. He said, okay, Lord, this will be the sign that you could give me to show me who would be the woman for Isaac. He says, let it come to pass as we are at the well, whichever woman comes and says that she will give water for me, she will give water to me and to my camels, she will be the one for Isaac. That will be the woman that you have chosen to be Isaac's bride. And so this will be the sign. So as Eliezer was praying, a beautiful woman showed up with, her vase, her jar, to get water from the well. And so she went to the well, and then she said to Eliezer, she said, I'll get water for your camels and you, and I'll let them drink until they've had enough. So guess what? Eliezer's prayer was answered. God had answered his prayer. He said, whichever woman comes and gives water to me and my camels, she will be the one. And sure enough, a woman shows up and she offers water to him and his camels. And so Eliezer was so overjoyed because he said, this is the woman. I have found her. God had answered his prayer. She would be the perfect woman for Isaac. And so then he asked her, he said, well, whose daughter are you? Because remember, Abraham said not only did he want him to find a wife in his homeland, but the wife had to be from his family. So Eliezer asked the woman, he says, whose daughter are you? Do you think your father would allow me to stay for the night? And she replied that her name was Rebekah, the granddaughter of Nahor. Now, if you remember, Abraham had a brother named Nahor, so that means that this is Abraham's niece. So this was God answering his prayer even more. The woman was not only from the land of Ur, but she also was in Abraham's family. So he had found the perfect woman to be Isaac's wife. So she said, surely you can come and stay over for the night. We have plenty of straw and food for your camels.